Hello, and welcome back to Avon Talks, hosted by me, Ethan Guo. And today I am joined by Brian Malone.
Hello.
Um, I don't know what title you really
Oh, I go
wanted to
by,
go
I'm
for.
a Avon Historical Board of Director slash trustee, I guess.
Exactly. And how are you doing today, Brian?
I'm good. It's a little humid outside, but it's pretty cool in this basement, so I'm feeling pretty
Uh
good.
huh. And we're also joined today by Cal Stevens Miller, who is. Oh, sorry, Cal Cal Miller Stevens, who is.
I'll give the titles. I know a
Yeah.
little complicated, Ethan. Thank you very much for having me and the opportunity to tell our history of our Miller Farm family since 1950.
Wow.
Yes, and you asked what I am. Well, I would consider myself, years ago, I put it like a worker bee because when you have a family business,
Hmm.
you do everything. You grow up on the farm, there's no boys, and there
Oh,
were
yeah.
two sisters.
You have been a female owned business for a
Yeah,
long time.
yes. My since 86,
Wow.
86. Yeah. Brian, do you ever remember going by the turkeys as a kid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would always pass by the horses and then the turkeys. I would always see that house on the corner, right by St. Anne's,
Yeah,
every single winter.
and that's where I lived and worked for the last 73 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's and that is what people remember when they think about the history of Avon. The turkey farm next to the governor's horse guard.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, we raised over 14,000 turkeys.
Wow.
And before,
Totally?
totally. And
Wow.
before that, where our pet food store is now, we're selling the Oma's Pride.
Mhm.
Above that, we used to raise chickens and to lay eggs. They were laying hens, they were called.
Turkeys and chickens for eggs.
Well, we raised the chickens and the eggs first, and my
Mm.
mother used to sell eggs door to door. We had an egg route and a station wagon, and you drop off so many. I think I was telling you at the
Wait,
event
sorry,
the
how long
other
ago
night.
was this?
What's it? That was in the 60s, early 60s actually, late 50s and early 60s. It's like the milkman.
Iceman, Knife
You see all my
Man.
milk bottles in the house there?
Oh, yeah,
on-
your collection of milk
yeah,
bottles,
collection.
yep.
Well, part of that goes back because I also used to help my father deliver milk. His cousins had Maple Hill Farms, and so on weekends and holidays, I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old at the time for about 3 or 4 years,
Mm.
and it's so interesting. You'd stand on the hump. No seat belts, the doors were open,
Wow, back in the
and that
day.
and that was back in the day.
Wow.
So how as they say, things change, babe.
Yeah, that whole area right by St. Anne's. Was St. Anne's always there? Even when you
No.
were little, that whole church?
No, they built, I think, in the 50s. Well, that would be something. There's a new priest there, Father Al. Maybe there's a historian. That would be interesting about St. Anne's Church.
And your Miller farm, it was the farmhouse. And what are the other things on the farm now? You said the dog food company, the catering thing? Also?
Well, we were there. Interesting. We were there before zoning, so that's how long we've been in town. There was no
Wow.
zoning when.
So you could just place things anywhere you
So we
want.
just started it. My father built buildings, my mother, and so on. We need another pen and so on. Because as I was saying earlier, we used to raise the chickens up above, deliver eggs door to door, and so on. And then one year, things started to change. I know part of the question was we have evolved in, as you saw, about 8 different businesses over time. And the biggest thing is change. Now, delivering eggs, milk door to door, people started to work. Women started to get out of the house. The kids would go to school or they would have a sitter or go to a daycare. So the demand for home delivery was
Went down.
right. It changed. People
Yeah.
were going to the grocery store. So we ended up selling the eggs to the grocery store. In the meantime, Mr. Carville, who was a Worthmore feed salesman, had 300 turkeys that he would raise.
In Avon?
In Avon, right next to St. Anne's Church.
Wow, 300 turkeys right by St.
Yeah,
Anne's.
so he would raise them and slaughter them, and my father used to help him out. And
Mm.
they came out with a policy of conflict of interest that if you sold the grain, you really couldn't get involved in,
Other aspects of the
Exact.
supply chain.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Perfect wording.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's true. And so he gave my parents a turkey business, but turkeys and chickens at that time spread diseases together.
Right.
So we got out of the chicken business, and at the timing, as I say, with the grocery stores coming on board, the demand was not there. So
Did you, at that point, move to the next evolution of Miller Farms, which was like the distribution with the trucks and stuff like that? Or did that come later?
Well, it segued into that. What happened with raising the turkeys is that we used to slaughter them right there at our plant
And sell the meat?
and sell the whole turkeys.
Yeah.
I used to take off when I was in 5th grade, the week before Thanksgiving, and I was
Wow.
the head gizzard opener, and I was the only gizzard opener.
Wow.
But because you have a farm, and
Yeah.
back then the mentality is the kids work the farm. My sister Sandy was she was a cook while my mother was working, and doing what she was doing. And on a side note, see how things evolve. That when she was delivering eggs, she had a station wagon, and my father also drove bus, because people would have more than one job on a farm. Because there was just, you needed the extra money coming in, and it was early morning and so on, and not a full-time job. So Mr. Guarneri said to my mother, "Hey, you toots, you got a station wagon. The town wants the 2 kids brought to Burlington. Can you do it?" And so that's how she got in the transportation business.
Wow, she made it happen through
She
that.
made it happen. So the egg business died, and transportation, when she passed away, she had 14 vans or station wagons, Miller Transportation.
Wow.
And that business lasted over 50 years. So
Wow.
that, yeah, she had set an image for my sister and I as working. Everybody in our family worked. And it wasn't that you do this, you do that. We worked together in getting the job done.
I would
So-
say Miller Farms is one of the farms that's been one of the longest lasting in Avon. And
Yeah.
it's because it's been able to adapt and evolve. I mean, to go from door-to-door egg selling to a full distribution operation within a
Right.
couple years is really big, especially for such a town like Avon.
And what happened is that you don't know what you don't know. All you knew was work. We had one vacation my whole life. I remember 5 days up to Hampton Beach because we had the farm and so on. So we never had the opportunity to take a vacation. It was just all about working. And when you were
Everybody's involved.
everybody was involved. So you couldn't say turn the key and then you had animals. They needed care also. And when you were talking, you made the point about the evolution, and it evolved from the slaughtering of our own turkeys to what happened is the government came out with regulation changes that you had to go federal regulations for your slaughtering operation,
Right.
and they no longer had state. And this was a double-edged sword because it was going to be very expensive to change a plant over, and then you get in regulations and the water issue, and there's so much complications
Absolutely.
that we got out of raising the 14,000 turkeys, and at that time working with farmers that would, raise turkeys, good quality turkeys, and they would partner with them. And so that's how we got in partnering with the turkey farm. And as a result, we went USDA for processing. And what that means is like we had 1 year turkeys left over, and it's like Christmas trees after Christmas. Years ago, and some of you listening may remember or may not, but you couldn't buy certain items. People didn't sell certain items. Turkeys were Thanksgiving. and about half of that at Christmas. So what are we going to do? How are we going to pay our grain bills? And my mother
on
went
the off months.
on the off months. So we had all these turkeys left over, and one of a friend worked as a chef at called the Al Mitchell House, which was Food with Intrigue, which is a story for another time. It was an excellent quality restaurant in town, and he taught us how to bone a turkey.
When was what year was this? When that restaurant was around?
Well, it was in the 50s, and it
50s,
was where
wow.
Dakota restaurant.
Oh, right on Route 44.
Right, where that is now. So he taught us how to bone these turkeys. Excuse me. And actually, my mother went out selling, and she got some large insurance companies, University of Hartford, so that we could pay our bills too, because we had to sell these turkeys. So as a result, people would say, "Oh, you're delivering turkeys. Do you have any chickens?" So they started to buy chickens through a distributor, and oh, can you cut them up? So we got, 1,500 kids that go to University of Hartford. Can you split them? Can you quarter them? So we got into more processing, and as a result, you need USDA labeling to do that.
You need to
And
do
so that
both.
gave us an opportunity to become a distributor. And back in the 70s and 80s, we were Purdue's largest distributor in New England.
Wow.
Yeah, because we used to
Miller
do
Farms.
all the hot food program for the Stop and Shops and the roaster program that Purdue had with different Big Ys and large warehouses. So they didn't really have the facilities at their warehouse to deliver back then, not like now where they deliver everything. They needed people to work with them. So, it's evolving. It evolved from that. And then what happened, the big guys get big that they have enough volume to build these warehouses, so they cut you out.
Yeah.
So it's like you go up to one day, you're going to see Stop and Shop. Sam and I went up there, and he goes, "Oh, well, by the way, can you bring your inventories up?" And you go, "Uh-oh, this isn't a good sign."
Oh, man.
And so
Sam is your husband?
Sam's my husband.
Yes.
Yeah, 44 years we're married.
Wow. Congrats.
Saturday. And that's the thing I want to mention. The other people in the family, it was all a family affair. My mother, Oma, my father, my ex-brother-in-law, Chuck Nassambini, who grew up in Avon, who was a all-state athlete and so on. My sister, Sandy, their daughter, Capri, that generation. Then I married Sam, and he worked in the business. And then our three children, Cam and Tanner and Taryn, and then Capri's boys all worked. Nick and Adam and EJ and Brett. So the generations.
She had 4 boys?
She had 4 boys, yes.
Was it like a very natural thing? Like, did they just look at Miller Farms and think, I want to be part of this? Or was it like...
Well, that's interesting, Ethan, because when I grew up, it was my parents just assumed you're working. Family businesses are unique, and where the opportunity, they all went to college. Where you're going, one of them went to Tufts, is a great university, and everyone kind of found their own paths, but they still worked in the business. And if there's advice out here with family businesses, if anyone is asking, and is that you work outside your family business for so many years, that your family has a certain policy, that you work outside and you experience what else is out there. And then also bringing to the table my great-nephew, Adam, who will be our president of our company someday. Right now, Capri is, and you met Adam the other night. But he worked for the Hartford for many years. So you come with other opportunities. But Ethan, family business is a whole other, it's so awesome because you can count on them. And that's the thing with a family business.
You said with the Miller farm, your great-grandfather owned it? Or where did it start?
It started, you brought up that the other night because we started in the 50s. My parents moved there. But actually my father's father had lived there, and they were raising chickens and stuff, and my father did 4-H, not on a large scale level, it was more or less smaller scale. But
Okay.
we're going to research that and actually find out, what year in the 30s that it did happen. So, but right now we're working on celebrating our 75th, but it might be our 90th in reality.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the 1950s, it was your father and mother moved here to Avon. Where were
Right.
they
They
from?
lived in Terryville.
Terryville, still in
Terryville.
Connecticut.
Still in Connecticut.
Okay.
And my mother grew up on a dairy farm. So she was
okay.
used to farming and,
Yeah,
and
farm
working
life.
also. And when they moved up, I was 1 year old and my sister was 3. And as I said, that my father had one sister, and when my grandfather passed away, from what I understand, my aunt didn't want the land or the business, and that what they do is they worked out a buyout agreement, and so that moved on to the next history part.
Wow.
It started. I joke because I remember the first person that painted a truck and running by and spilling his paint, and he used to Pride of the Valley.
Pride
He
of
came
the
up with
Valley.
because he had a sunrise, and now we still use that on our turkey bags. Miller Poultry Farm, Pride of the
Wow.
Valley. So things change, but they don't change. I know when you are market there, which has the OMAs, and that's really the next evolution. What happened is as the big guys got bigger, and they knock out the middleman. We were the
Right.
middleman. So all of a sudden, you go up and hey, you did a great job. You got Distributor of the Year. You're awesome. But we're doing it in our own warehouse now. And so how are you going to change? Every time we tried different things like something called Zap Snack, which you would
Wow.
sell to school systems. When you guys were in school and you bought, whether it was candy or cookies, you'd resell it, or what would they have? Paper supplies. What did you used to have in school, Brian? That you ever have to sell for your class so you could go on a class trip or
different
something?
either candy bars or magazines or
Yeah,
something along
yeah.
that line.
Yeah, so this was a pizza company. We tried to
Wow.
sell. We had, and I still love the idea. It was called Power Pack. It was water and a high energy bar. And then now the thought is, maybe we can use one of our pet foods. But you keep trying. I have a variety amount of old ideas. We were going to do a home delivery after, in the 90s when things were turning around.
Home delivery in the 90s.
A home,
Wow.
we had started a little of that, but we didn't have the capital. Sometimes ideas are so good, but you don't have the people and the capital behind it to move forward with it.
Yeah, even in current year that we see a lot of home delivery.
Now
see a
it
lot of
changed.
Yeah, I was gonna
Uber.
make that point because it feels like home delivery has made a real comeback.
It has.
Like nobody wants to go to the grocery store if you can just get it delivered
Or
to
a
your
restaurant.
doorstep.
And you know what? Timing, you both are correct, and what a lot of it is timing in life. You can be too early for it. Or you can be right on the mark. And what happened was as things evolved and the food business got tougher and tighter, people were coming into our market there because we were selling food. We sold from pies to meatballs and potatoes and everything, becoming a food distributor. And people would come into our market, and some of them would want to buy our turkey bones, turkey necks. And what are you doing with this stuff? We started to talk to them. They were making their own pet food, and their Cuisinarts were breaking. And we happened to have a machine that we were using to grind our hamburger. And then, Brian, guess what? The government had come out with another policy.
Another policy?
That USDA beef had to come under different regulations.
Classic,
So we had
classic.
this Viro machine, and we started. My sister Sandy was very instrumental in with our pet food.
You and Sandy are Oma's children?
Yes, yeah.
And Oma, that name means.
Grandmother in German.
And you, how did that become the name of the dog food?
Well, we when we were starting the dog food, it's like, what are we going to call this? And we'd get together and kind of brainstorm. And we had a product that we called Oma's Pride. It was a little turkey roast in an oven roasted bag. And again, it was delicious. It was great, the concept, but you didn't have enough money to put in advertising, marketing, packaging. And so Sam says, we have this Oma's Pride. Because it was kind of who Oma was. That's who she was. Her transportation business and the kind of person that she was involved in the community. And so Oma's Pride came up with the name of the product. And then we also had something called Paws Pride for our treats.
Okay.
Our treats. But now it is all under Oma's Pride. So at that time, in the late, 99, the pet food, people started asking for the vegetables and so on. And learning about what is this raw diet. And it was very new. There was someone out of Canada who was a forerunner in it, and education and so on. And we worked with homeopathic vets, local people, a gal named Sandy Reuter and Sandy worked together, and this Dr. Cindy Atwood out of Maine, she was a homeopathic vet, and then researching and so on. And why do pets need raw food? And the baseline is, if you watch Animal Planet, if you're taking a walk and you see what does an animal eat that's eating another animal? It starts at the stomach, and it eats what in the beef, it's called the tripe. It starts at the stomach. It eats the organ meats, the heart, the liver, the kidney. It goes out. It eats the muscle meat, and it eats the bones because it keeps their teeth and gum and their digestion.
Bone marrow is also great.
Yes, exactly. Perfect with that. And so that's how Oma's Pride got started. And we do dog shows, high-end dog shows. So it's still all food. And we always had quality in mind. So when we were making Oma's, we didn't add any wheats, grains, additives, preservative, extra water. It was what it was. And
raw, kind of like if you were to eat, like if they were to eat out in the wild, they're eating the stomach, the proteins of the heart, of the organs and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of vitamins and stuff in there too.
Exactly, and you're exactly right. So you look at it logically, and when you go to a market, Ethan and Brian, and you're looking at the pet aisle with these hundreds of different dry foods, and you look at the label. And what is the first ingredient? And some of you can't even read.
Yeah, it's preservatives.
Yeah, a lot of it to cheapen the product.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
so
a lot of chemical. There's been a lot of lawsuits against these big pet food distributors because of all the preservatives in the food. Hurt the cats, hurt the dogs, and stuff like that. So I know a ton. It's becoming very much more trendy now to look for third-party alternatives to these types of brands. And
when you mention that, so much is at control in making the product. We make our raw pet food right at our plant in Avon, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, a few years back, there was a recall on many different canned items because this one plant, they call it co-packing, for maybe 20 different companies, from high end to the other. And whatever was transferred into that, all those companies. But with Oma's, we make it right there in Avon. Sometime I can take you through, and it's raw meat and frozen, and we had the connections with our food, so we could buy our beef, lamb, chicken, turkey direct from the processors. So we get it fresh. I mean, the chickens that are slaughtered today come up from Maryland tomorrow, and they're processed by Thursday. So it's it's again a change,
in-house,
and it's done in there. I don't want to bore. Any questions about this or whatever?
No, it's
it's just.
It's amazing.
And then it kicked off because Rufus won Westminster, which is a very notable show, right after Thanksgiving meal. And Rufus won, and he ate Oma's.
Wow.
And so...
Westminster's a dog show?
Yes, Westminster's a dog show, and down in New York. And so Rufus won, and when when he was doing his promotion, and there it said, he fed Oma's Pride. And so that kicked it off with notoriety. And so we still always had our transportation, and then we had our food, and then the pet food was growing. But the people food was changing. The big guys were getting bigger. I mean, you see all the trucks around. What are they? The national companies.
Yep.
Even in town here, you go up 44, how many independents? Avon's lucky. We have a few more than most towns. But
True.
But the chains have taken over. So we still maintain our unique quality with that. And the turkeys over the years with our Miller Farms, since COVID, we used to have a big tent and cooking demonstrations. And when that changed, our daughter Taryn came up with the idea at COVID that, there's a lot of people, they're isolated at home, buy a turkey, give a turkey. And it was very successful because so many people were working at home, so the companies would mail turkeys. She had one company from California that 900 turkeys got sent out. And they say, how could you send them out? But because of our OMAs and our e-commerce that we ship that out of our plant over in Bristol. All of our shipping and e-commerce is over there. It's a 17,000 square foot building that we ship out of. So we have the opportunity to ship our food,
turkeys and
vary and at great rates because we ship thousands of pounds of that. So
buy one get one for another person.
So that was the first year, and then the second year it changed because people were not quite as, their attitude was changing. So then it evolved into a little bit different, and last year it was different, and this year what we're doing with that, and thank you for coming to the event. What did you get out of that event?
The main thing I got out of the event was how strong the community was.
I was about to say a sense of community.
It was so strong. It's one of those things, and you sort of touched on this when talking about the uniqueness of like small businesses like Miller's, independent businesses like Miller's, instead of the big national conglomerates, which is that they really know their community, and so they can really make an impact within their community. They know what the community needs, and they can provide it.
You had people showing up who had been associated with your farm, working for your farm for 30 plus years.
Linda was our greeter at our tent for 38 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just it was the loyalty, because you don't really how many people would show up 40 years later for some of these other branded companies and stuff like that. It was a big sense of community.
Well, and this was that we didn't know how it was going to work out. We didn't open it up to put it out on Facebook. Whoever wants to come, show up. In talking with people who might wanna, we call them you guys, us, all of us. See, that's why I'm the ambassador. Yeah, for Miller Farms, Oma's Pride. It's an ambassador because you educate people. Well, what do they want to do? They want to feed 100,000 Thanksgiving meals, turkeys.
That's
a turkey dinner, the turkey for their dinner.
Wow.
And we are doing that with Food Share. And also, at the same time, we've been working our 501c3. We got that approved. So it gives another opportunity for people, larger companies, which are able to have funds and donate to organizations, 501c3s, and use it as a tax advantage for them and to help out the community.
So just to clarify, what is the 501c3 as opposed to Oma's Pride? So Oma's Pride is the pet food company, and the 501c3 is for
taxes.
Miller Farms Cares, right?
Oh, I see.
So it's called Miller Farms Cares. It's separate. So we have our Oma's Pride and OPA's, but it's all now Oma's Pride. And the Miller Farms is the mother, okay? Or Miller Foods it was, but we have that. You saw the umbrella that in the market. I took a picture before I left so we could show the history of it from 1950 to 2023. And so Miller Farms, and then you've got OPA's. Then we have Miller Farms, okay, which is the turkeys when Big Y, all the Big Ys in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Sam already has their holiday orders. Cam and Denise are working on our corporate accounts because there's a lot of businesses that give people still holiday turkeys and so on. And so that's Almost Pride, Miller Farms, and then Miller Farm Cares is our 501c3. So it's a nonprofit with that. So, yeah, there's a lot of history and a lot of evolution going on. And we've got great people that have been with us for quite a few years.
How long did your mom operate the farm?
She ran her own business. She actually, I saw her the night before. She was working. She died in her sleep.
Wow.
So she was 60, just 61,
Wow.
62. And so that's how it was. My father passed away also. Unfortunately, he had cancer, but he died working too. So when it comes to people talk about retiring, I've never known not to work because it wasn't like it was ever spoken that maybe in your family, do your parents ever talk about retirement?
Sometimes.
Okay. Well, mine never did. I never heard that word because all we knew was work.
But I guess that's also kind of the difference between working within a family business and working within another business like Bank of America or something. Like when you're working with your family, you're always just with your family, and it's just it's within your family, so you're never really out of it.
Right, and that's the point, and that's a double-edged sword. Good, and so you have to keep a balance, and you have to have fun along the way. And sometimes we can laugh, sometimes we cry, sometimes your emotions go other ways, but you're always, if something's wrong, you're there. You're pitching in, like that phone call I had to take. 4:30, a meeting today on it, because that's what family and businesses are about and do.
100%.
Yeah.
So technically, have you worked on the farm longer than like your parents did? Because if they acquired it from your grandfather.
My sister passed away a couple years ago. I'm the
just
matriarch. Brian, can you believe it?
Yeah.
I am the matriarch. When you
are
hear
the
that,
number one.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of the living family member that's left.
So is Sandy, you,
Sandy and I, we're just the two of us. So
wow, just sisters running the business.
And then after my parents died, her husband, Sandy's husband Chuck, was instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got divorced and he moved out, my husband, I had been going out with him a year or two, and he was in the food business, and so, he ended up working, and he was Sam is the kind of guy that he would do everything and never complain. If a truck was late and had to get unloaded, if a customer needed something, he'd run out. He'd do the payroll, the accounting. He never said no to anything. At times he would call himself a fireman because they couldn't fix a piece of equipment. He would go down and help them. And he's very intelligent and very easygoing. A combination of all family members. As I say, from my parents, Sandy, and her first husband, Chuck, and second husband, Dave, and her daughter. And
I was about to say, her kids
Adam,
have really stepped up
Adam
in
and
Sandy's
Nick.
place.
Yes,
Yeah.
Nick does a lot of technology. He's awesome. Adam, EJ, everybody has different skills. Brett used to be awesome at the tent. So everyone has different skills they brought it to the table. And on my side with Sam and Cam used to do the shows. She was down in Westminster when the dog won and promoting it. Now she's helping with the turkeys. And Taryn, it's always kind of there. Taryn, who wasn't that involved, there's a Miller food sign in her house wherever she goes, New York City or P-Town. And Tanner's just, he would just, yeah, man, this is great. I love it.
Just vibing.
Yeah, so lucky, and that's so the history in the nutshell. What we might want to wrap up is possibly we're talking about Millard Poultry Farm started in the 50s. That's where our chicken and turkey, and we came out with a logo. We're just a little bit chicken because we wanted people to know that we were more than just poultry.
Yeah.
We developed a new logo. Sam got that when he worked at University of Hartford, the art department, $25. We put a contest going.
Wow.
And then we had the transportation, and then going to our Miller Foods, and then Oma's Pride, the Opaws, and then our Thankful Turkey, and then a whole new logo with our pet food, where Oma's and the pet food with Opaws is combined. And Oma's is developed and going to be across the country. Actually, we have an account in Hong Kong. Cam had got that account about 20 years ago now, and picking up distributors around the country. They're going national
Would
with
you say that's
our
like-
pet food.
Wait, so you're going to be shipping internationally to Hong Kong?
We have been doing Hong Kong. We've been shipping them. Cam got the account about 20 years.
Huh.
They
Wow.
get an order a couple times a year, and they're very easy to ship. Every country is different. We tried to ship to England, but you have to have a lot more I-dotting. So that could be a whole exporting. Could be another. Maybe that, Brian, you might be right. The exporting might be what's next after Oma's Pride now.
The future.
You know, what is the future going to bring? And that's one thing we would always think about. How you have a couple irons in, and maybe one isn't hot enough. One never gets hot. One is super hot. So you have to keep in a family business where things changing. You can't just have vanilla ice cream and open up an ice cream shop.
Yep.
You know, so you have to evolve. You know, we got to get a special cone. You got to get it. You know, and so
That's what I'm pretty positive about. Like, no matter what the future holds, Miller Farms has shown that they can adapt and evolve. So I'm not really all that worried. I'm excited to see what they're able to do next.
yeah, I am too. We've got a great family team and awesome people that work with us. Even my niece Michelle now has our purchasing agent a few years, and so more family members are in there, and the people working are like family as I feel. So
Absolutely.
very thankful and grateful, and the Gobbles for Gratitude theme for our Miller Farms this year for trying to feed 100,000 people. So thank you so much for letting me come by and
Absolutely. Of
share
course.
some knowledge about our history and moving forward. And I hope in 74 years there might be somebody else doing the next 74 years of
Absolutely.
history.
And Brian, I will still be here.
And you
to
two will
record
still be
that.
there.
Yeah.
Yay!
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much,
Thank
Cal.
you so much,
guys.
Cal.
Thank you.
This podcast is an Avon Historical Society production, edited by me, Ethan Guo. Special thanks to Priscilla Marshall for the graphics. If you'd like to support this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else podcasts are downloaded. Want to be featured on a future episode or stay up to date with the podcast newsletter? Feel free to reach out to us at avontalksahs@gmail.com. For more on the Avon Historical Society, visit www.avonhistoricalsociety.org.